I'm sitting in front of my whiteboard today with a rather imposing and intimidating list of 8 different scale types. This was an exercise that my saxophone teacher gave me way back in the early 1980s, and he had me learn all these scales, memorize them, and play them in all of the keys, and to be able to play them back to back without making a mistake, non-stop eighth notes. Now that's quite an ambitious exercise for any music student, but it really proved helpful for me as a student of jazz and as an improviser. And it's something that I've been able to replicate, that skill on the chromatic harmonica. I suppose that it's helped me. And I'm not going to play through this list of scales. It turns out I already did that. A few months ago, the former bearded self, my former bearded self, did a short video. So somehow under 60 seconds I was able to play all 8 scale types in the key of C and do a little bit of commentary afterwards. So anyway, not going to do that, but I'm going to talk about the concept of taking a list like this. The whole point of this list is that you just change one note at a time while you're going down the list. So you have this foundation, you know, a 7-tone scale. 6 tones are going to be the same. If you go from the major scale to the dominant scale, 6 of the 7 tones are going to be the same. The second time around, you're going to flat the 7. It's one change, but dealing with the mechanics of the harmonica or the saxophone for that matter, like, and mentally thinking, I'm flatting the 7th now. It actually is a tremendous thing to gain that degree of control over your musical instrument, that you can change tonalities while the notes continue to flow. So can I just demonstrate? That's a good place to start, is this pairing. And I have all these 3 circled: major, dominant, Dorian. Those 3 are featured in volume 1 of my harmonica method, volume 1 and 2 of my harmonica method. Also, these 3 scales are really emphasized as a starting point in the materials of Jamie Aebersold. Now, Jamie is part of what I call the first generation of jazz education guys. You got Jerry Coker, David Baker, and Jamie Aebersold, and a few other names I could mention. Those names may be meaningless, but these were the 3 scales that they would emphasize that you could be able to get around in order to start playing over jazz standards. I would argue that this natural minor scale is just as important, and that maybe you should learn 4 scale types, but I choose to include these 3 in my harmonica methods. Then I came out with a scale ebook for minor scales. It's not just a here's how to play the scales. I go through kind of some music theory and my thoughts of each of the tonalities and where and when you could use them, and practice methodologies for learning the scales. And one of the methodologies is to pair them up. But let's just go ahead and start with this major dominant thing, just to give you an example. So I'll play a C major scale, then without stopping, I'll play the C dominant scale. So a continual flow of notes is the goal. Now, I think what's valuable is to keep going back and forth. Not just to play one and then play the other, but to just keep looping it. So I'll do it 3 times. This may take a minute, but let's see if I can just do it 3 times. So that was that. That was it. C major and C dominant scales back to back. I played them up to the ninth, or the note D, and back down. In my minor scale book, I have you do this as a definitive step before you try to play all four scales together. So let me switch to D minor, the saddest of all keys, and demonstrate Dorian to natural minor, which is a good pair of scales to work on. The note that we're going to change is in the D Dorian scale. It has a natural sixth. In the natural minor, we're going to flat the sixth degree, so it's going to be a B flat. So the Dorian scale, we're up on hole 4 draw for the B, and then when we go into the natural minor scale, we're going to flat the sixth. We're going to play the B flat on hole 3 draw with this slide, and we're just getting used to that difference, focusing in on, you know, how that feels, and we're just going to go back and forth. So we could continue on down the list, and we could pair up the next two. The natural minor, and then the harmonic minor scale, we just raise the 7th degree. The next thing we could do, continuing down the list, is to pair these last two in the list, harmonic and melodic minor. It would appear that we're done with logical pairings, where you're just changing one note at a time, in this last list of 4. However, it turns out you can pair the melodic minor with the Dorian scale. They're just one note different. So let's do that. So here's the melodic minor scale, followed by the Dorian. One more time. The other thing you could do is you could pair the melodic minor with the major scale. That's only one note different. So that's about all I want to say about that. This particular lecture really is a commercial for my harmonica courses. If you haven't checked them out on my website, chromaticlessons.com, I encourage you to check them out. They don't cost that much, and you get a lifetime access to these streaming videos. I think Volume 1 and Volume 2, each of those are like 4 hours of instruction for a pretty darn reasonable price. So if you are self-disciplined enough to watch a video and practice the things I suggest, you can make a lot of progress as a chromatic harmonica player, and you're going to learn the instrument in a multitude of keys. I haven't got to the point in my instruction yet where I've covered all the keys, but I've got really four more keys to go for these kind of scales, then 6 more keys to go for the minor scales. One thing I want to say before I go is that every one of these tonalities, you can find backing tracks on YouTube. It's kind of crazy, really, but you could type in Lydian Dominant backing track, and one will come up with a groove, you know. It's kind of a more fun way to practice the scales. You can practice the scale against that track, and you can start improvising with those scale tones. When I get to Volume 2 of my method, I actually created some of my own backing tracks for all the tonalities represented. So I've got a major scale backing track, a dominant scale backing track, a Dorian scale backing track. Anyway, please like and subscribe to this video, and I'll talk to you guys later.